Hi, my name is Ann Edenfield-Sweet. I'm excited to have you with us tonight for Wings for Life International. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight, Nico Morales, and he's written this incredible book. I've read his book. He gave me a copy of his book, and it's the 5 things you need to know before you get sober. And it is his life story and the things that he went through. And boy, if you are dealing with sobriety, if you know anybody that is dealing with this, call them right now. Tell them that you got to get on this Zoom call. You got to hear this because it's going to be great. Nico has started his own organization now called No Halo LLC. He's a certified peer support worker, and he is awesome. And I am so thankful he's with us tonight. So welcome, Nico, and tell us all about ways to get sober.
Oh, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and allowing me to speak on your platform. It's wonderful to be able to engage with your community in this way. As Ann said, today we're going to be discussing the 5 things that I believe everyone should know before they get sober. This is sober from any type of substance or even a behavior that you might need to go ahead and change. I unfortunately had to learn these things the kinesthetic way, I think is how it's pronounced. You know, that learn as you go, trial by fire, that plenty of us have decided to take. My goal is to make sure that people don't have to struggle as much as they might need to without knowing these 5 things. So I've titled this presentation, Before You Stop, 5 Things to Know Before You Get Sober. My intended takeaways for this presentation today are to let you know that change is possible. You can do it. Wherever you're at right now, you're above ground. And if you're above ground, you have the opportunity to change, and it is possible. It does require you to do the work. It's not anybody else's responsibility. You must do the work yourself to get the change that you would like. The third takeaway that I'm hoping you guys will have is you must make a decision, and you must commit to that decision. I always like to give reasoning why I think I should be listened to, or what they call authority on the matter. On the screen right now, you're going to be seeing some past of mine as well as the present. I understand what it's like to be hopeless. I understand what it's like to be in just a very dark place. My past consisted of using 60 cc's of opiates through a 33 gauge needle, slamming it into my veins, and that was just to stay well. It wasn't even to get high. Now I can say that I used those experiences and I published a book out of it. After opiates, I went ahead and started drinking. I hadn't dealt with the underlying issues that caused me to rely on substances. So after kicking opiates, I picked up the bottle, unfortunately. And I exceeded probably the amount that I should be drinking. It was 2 bottles every day. And those are the 5ths that I was consuming. I almost lost my job because of that. I had a bunch of health impacts that came along with the alcoholism. But the resiliency that I built in both kicking a heroin addiction and fighting alcoholism allowed me to be resilient in getting a bachelor's degree in business administration. I'm very proud to say that I didn't pay us very much for that bachelor's degree. Out of pocket, it was like $250 out of my own pocket. So there are ways to accomplish your goals without actually coming out of your own pockets for it. The last big thing in my past that I think we need to consider is that I know what broken relationships feel like. I know what having no and very low self-esteem feels like as well. And I know what it feels like to just have a hostile demeanor about yourself, angry with both the decisions that you're making as well as the environments that you're in. I've taken the tools that I've learned throughout the many years that I've been battling these battles, and I can now say that I am in a healthy place. I do have a confidence that only comes with self-work. And I got a clear head so that I understand that I'm in control of my feelings. They're not in control of me. The first thing that I think anybody should know before they get sober is that it's a choice. It's a choice to continue using drugs as well as it's a choice to stop using drugs. What I came to the conclusion was I use the same muscle, whether I'm fighting the withdrawals, fighting my own inner conflict, as I do with fighting the regret to get high, fighting the thought process that come along with it. I understand that some of our society believes that drug abuse and alcoholism is a moral failure or moral shortcoming. If we would take that approach, then it's a choice to change that moral shortcoming or that moral failure. But you still have the choice to work on it. If you're of the opinion that addiction is a disease, I don't want to take that away from you either. But just like any other disease, you can either choose to treat it or you can choose to not treat it. Either way, it's a choice. When I got introduced to Wings and gave me the 40 developmental assets, and I'm telling you, these things are key. As I was going over them and I was reading them, I understand how they I understand how they can apply to the change that a lot of us desire to have. So I picked a couple of them for this specific topic. I believe that you need to have an achievement motivation in order to make the choice. Let's be honest. Most of us have done some pretty wild things to use some sort of narcotic, get some sort of substance ingested. That right there is a negative display of achievement motivation. The difficult part, guys, is that we have to change what we see as our desired outcomes. If you can change your desired outcome from, I can't stand these withdrawals to, I can't stand living this way, you've already displayed achievement motivation in your life, that it just needs to be directed in a different way. When I was in my very dark places, I couldn't really be left alone for too long. If I had a substance with me, literally I could use inside of a bathroom, 5 to 10 minutes. It was a choice that I was making because for that same 5 to 10 minutes, I could have chosen to do some breathing techniques. If you believe in a higher power, you can take that time to pray to your higher power. There's other meditation techniques that you could use for that same window of time. It's a choice. After the first time you use a drug, most of us feel some sort of regret. Then we continue to use these drugs, and that regret, we just kind of tell it to shush, be quiet. After a certain amount of time, it's a constant decision that we're making. And again, that's a constant decision to live in the moral shortcoming, if that's how you want to see it. Or it's a constant decision to live with the disease, knowing that there is treatment out there. The second one out of the developmental assets that I believe you need to have in order to make this choice is integrity. The reality is, at a certain point in your life, you stopped having supervision. And because you stopped having supervision, you had to start making those decisions. Unfortunately for a lot of us, me included, when we're left to ourselves, we don't make the best decisions. That boils down to integrity. A lot of us want to say that we have it, but it really comes to life when we make a commitment to ourselves, and we either follow through on it or we don't. The third developmental asset I believe that you need to have, or it's a choice, is planning and decision making. This one really stood out to me because in your journey, after you've made the choice to not use, you're going to have some time on your hands. And you're going to have some energy on your hands. Those two things usually are what cause most individuals to relapse. They haven't planned a way to spend their free time. And they haven't decided to use their energy in a positive way. You have to make a decision on the choice that you're going to make. And then you have to plan for that decision. The planning portion really gives us a leg up because you're going to run into some situations. You're going to run into some old people that you might know. You're going to run into environments that they don't care that you're not trying to use any substances or drink. You have to make the decision before you go into those environments that you're going to stick to your commitment to yourself. Choosing to get sober is a choice. The second thing that I believe you need to know before you get sober is that it's going to be uncomfortable. I unfortunately had this theory that getting sober and clean should be easy, it should be a breeze, shouldn't be painful. That's unfortunately a false expectation. Now, I'm not saying you need to inflict as much pain on yourself as possible. That's not the point. The point is that if you've put yourself in a position that your body is dependent on a narcotic, on a substance, whatever it is, your body's going to go through an uncomfortable stage when it starts to push that substance out and when it starts to remove its dependency on whatever it is that you've been feeding it. It's going to be uncomfortable. Heroin withdrawals made me think that I was going to die. Alcohol withdrawals almost killed me. It was very uncomfortable to be in the hospital and have to have some conversations that I had to have. It was very uncomfortable to go through the withdrawals on my own. This uncomfort, though, it was a pain. And I don't ever want to feel that pain again. So I truly believe that when you're going through recovery on your own, there's going to be some moments that are going to be uncomfortable. They might be different for you. Yours might be an uncomfortable conversation that you have to have. Yours might be an uncomfortable environment that you have to be in for a little bit of time to help you out. I'm not sure what your journey is going to consist of, but I am sure that there's going to be an uncomfortable position on it. So, here's the developmental assets that I believe that you would need to get through this portion of it. You must have a higher expectation of yourself. The cool part about this is that you get to set them, and then you get to exceed them. I have a firm belief that you need to decide what sober is for you and work towards that. There is an accomplishment that you get when you set these expectations for yourself and you meet them. One of the best ways I can suggest, one of the best ways that work for me, is I would set an expectation that for 2 hours I was going to go without using. That's how bad my drug use had been. I couldn't go more than a couple hours without using, so I had to force myself. When I got to that 2-hour window, I would see if I can go a couple more minutes. Just a few more, and he goes, try to push yourself. So when you set these higher expectations, have a plan to exceed them as well. Recovery is uncomfortable because you have to learn restraint. You have to learn self-discipline. You have to learn to control your thoughts because your thoughts impact your feelings. Your feelings impact your actions. And then those actions repeated constantly, that's what develops your character. For many of us, we have lived in these thought processes for so long that we forget that we have control over our thoughts and that our thoughts can control our feelings. Self-discipline and restraint, without having anybody else tell you to do it, is uncomfortable. Recovery is uncomfortable because safety for yourself and others must be considered. In my journey, I didn't go to a facility and go to inpatient. I was doing mine in the same environments that I was using it. My family had to kick me out to keep themselves safe. My mother told me, you need to leave. She took my keys. My father eventually told me, you can't live here. He took my keys. It's uncomfortable to say that I put my family's safety at risk. It was an uncomfortable conversation that my mother had to have with me. It was an uncomfortable situation that my father had to have with me. I don't ever want to feel those type of uncomforts again. Recovery is going to be uncomfortable. I would challenge you and ask, which type of uncomfort would you rather deal with? A temporary one that's going to give you some long-lasting results? Or are you going to deal with the long-term uncomfort and continue to feed that short-term pleasure that gets shorter and shorter every time? One way or another in this journey, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You get to choose how. The third thing I believe anybody should know before they get sober is that you're going to get to know yourself. You see, while we've been ingesting these narcotics in whatever form it is, or while we've been ingesting these substances in whatever form it is, we've been slowly creating a facade of the person who we think we are. You have an image in your head of who you think you are. And then there's the image that everybody else gets to see based on the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you present yourself, the way that you act. There was many things that I thought I enjoyed, and it turns out I enjoyed when I was high. I enjoyed when I was drunk. And when I removed those substances from my life and from my daily habits, I began to learn who I truly was. I began to learn my likes and my dislikes. I began to learn this creation that is myself. So you must be open to relearning. You haven't functioned the same in a long time. Please, take a moment and think, when was the last time that you went 30 days without using a substance? Was that person at that point in time the same person that you are now? I would guess that there are some pretty big differences. The developmental assets that you would want to use in getting to know yourself is resistance skills. You're going to have two voices inside of your head. One is the old character trying to tell you, go back, it's easier. The other one, well, that's going to be the one that's telling you, no, there's something better out there. The resistance skills that you need to build are one, listening to positive thoughts, positive people, resisting the urge to go back to negative behaviors and negative environments. You need to have interpersonal competence. This one was beautiful to me. One of the first words in this was empathy. You need to have some empathy for yourself. Empathy means you can look at your situation from a third party and understand that you've been through a lot. And because you've been through a lot, you have a lot to give this world. Where you give yourself a little bit of grace and not be so self-critical and know that you are going to mess up and that it's okay. It doesn't define you. The third part, or component I should say, in getting to know yourself is you're going to have to figure out some creative activities. Remember how I said earlier, one of the developmental assets that you need is planning and decision making. Creative activities is going to be helpful with that. Be open to doing things that you never did before. Be open to trying new hobbies. If I can give you just a quick pro tip, try as many as you can, because the majority of them you're not going to like. The more that you try, the closer that you'll get to finding one that you could spend your time doing, and that really gives you some fulfillment. Please, give yourself the opportunity to relearn some new behaviors, because you deserve it. You really do. You deserve to get to know the real you. This is the fourth part that I think anybody should know before they get sober. You're going to be vulnerable during this transition. Your mind's in a vulnerable place. It really doesn't know what to do because you've been telling it one way to live for so long, and that way of living has got nothing but negative results. Reality is, I will acknowledge there's probably some highlights in the journey that you've already been. But those highlights definitely do not outweigh the negative consequences that have already happened, that are pending, and the ones that you don't even know can happen. You're going to be vulnerable in this transition from breaking old habits to creating new ones. You need to know that you're going to be vulnerable. You need to be aware of that, because you're going to want to surround yourself with people who have positive interests in mind. A phrase that my grandmother used to tell me comes to mind. In Spanish, it's dime con quien andes y te digo quién eres. And she would tell me who you surround yourself with, and I'll tell you what kind of person you are. When you're vulnerable in this transition, you need to watch who's around you. You need to watch who you allow to influence your mind. The 3 developmental assets that I believe are crucial for this vulnerable stage in transition is having some sort of family support. I will acknowledge, nobody really has a functional family, and not everybody has a traditional family. For many of us, we have decided our own brothers and sisters, the people that we look up to. That's what I talk about when I talk about family support. You know the individuals that you can depend on. You know the individuals that you need to listen to. You know the individuals that have always looked out for your best interests. Those are your family support. Keep them in the loop and keep your mind open to their suggestions. That they're still willing to help you out is a cool thing. Use it. Religious communities. I'm not here to tell you what type of religious community to join. But I will let you know that in my journey, I truly believe every one of us is built into 3 parts: our body, our mind, and our spirit. For many of us, we've told our spirit they don't know the right direction. We've let our mind get muzzled because we only allow our body to direct us. When you look for these religious communities, find one that's going to feed your soul. Find one that's going to uplift your spirit. That's going to help you change the way that you think. Because that is one of the only requirements for making these type of changes. So surround yourself with a religious group that can feed your spirit, please. In this vulnerable place, you need to understand that other adults and peers can be beneficial. Your journey is unique. Each one of ours is. But that doesn't mean somebody else hasn't felt the same way. That doesn't mean that you're the first one to go through it. Brand new drugs out. Okay, so what? Go down to the root of them. They're still the basic functions. I'm sorry, but you need to know there's other individuals out there who are willing to share their experience with you so that you don't have to experience as much pain. In this period where you're going to be vulnerable in the transition, reach out to somebody who has the results that you desire. Reach out to an individual who is living a healthy and sober lifestyle, one that you might enjoy. When I was in my first couple months of being clean, I had an older homie. He told me, Nico, you need to stop talking about what you've been through. Reality is, you shouldn't have been there. You can't wallow in a place that you shouldn't have ever been. Nobody applauds a fish for swimming. Nobody needs to applaud you for getting your life back on track. It's a vulnerable place to be, and there are people to help you out. Please surround yourself with the right peers, a nurturing spiritual group, and those who have your best interests in mind. The last thing that I believe everybody should know before they get sober is there is joy in recovery. At some point in your life, you had a dream, an aspiration. You had a goal, something that brought you just immense joy. When you think about it, your face would light up. It got stolen, or maybe you gave it away. I don't know. What I do know, though, is that when I stopped relying on substances to bring me a temporary false joy, when I stopped guzzling alcohol just to feel happy for 45 minutes to an hour before I passed out, I knew there was something else that I needed to be searching for. I knew deep down inside of me, this can't be it. In my journey in recovery, I've had my own moments of joy. As I shared with you, my mother kicked me out and my father kicked me out. It's a joy to have a relationship with each one of them now. I have a younger sister. My sister didn't want anything to do with me, for right reasons. I was messing up. A couple years back, she got married. Because I made the choice, I went through the uncomfortable periods. I got to know myself a lot more. I was vulnerable in these transition moments. I got the joy of standing in her wedding. I get the joy of holding my niece. These were things, I can tell you, were far off wishes at one point in life. My family, they no longer just sit and wonder when I'm going to ask them for money. They know that when I call them, it's because I truly want to see them. Your joy will come in a different way. And you deserve it. The 3 developmental assets that I believe you need to have to reach this joy in recovery is personal power. I've said it before. You've been through a lot. You can endure a lot. What are you going to get out of it? That's personal power. Making a decision that I've been through enough pain, I'm going to enjoy some pleasure out of it. You need to have a positive view of the future. They have what's called a victim mindset and a victor mindset. A victim mindset says, woe is me. A victor mindset says, hey, this is a great opportunity to develop my skills. They both sit in the same situation. It's a choice on which one you're going to think. You need to have a sense of purpose. If I can share with you really quickly, purpose is fulfilling. You find it when you do something for joy and everybody else looks like it's work. Each one of us has many gifts that we need to put on display because our communities need it now more than ever. For many of us, we've lost this sense of purpose. And one of the joys in recovery is you'll find it back. And it'll be 10 times more enjoyable because you put in the work to do it. There's plenty of individuals that came before you. There can be plenty of individuals that come after you. If you can find joy in recovery, you understand what these individuals talk about in this purpose living with a positive view for the future, all because you had the personal power to make a choice and do something with the pain that you've been through. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention to this presentation. If you have any questions or if you just want to talk, there's some information on how you can get in contact with me.
Wow. 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 Nico, that was fantastic. Oh my gosh. Anybody in recovery needs to hear your talk. You highlighted 16 of the 40 developmental assets and gave exact ways and examples of how you can do this. And if you've missed any of our talks about the 40 developmental assets, there are 40 of them. He listed 16 in this presentation. You've got to have 30 or more of these to cut at-risk behaviors, and no community in America do the kids, mid and high school kids, have more than 20 of them. My gosh, here are 16 right now that everybody can work on. And then you could go to our website and see all the rest of them. You can also go to our website, you can find the placemat that he put together, listing his 5 points so clearly. His PowerPoint will be put on our website, so you'll be able to go back and review it. Oh my gosh, anybody dealing with any kind of addiction, please share this. You could go to our YouTube channel. In fact, if you go to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. We're trying to get 1,000 viewers, and then once we get 1,000 viewers, then we'll start to even make some money to be able to help us to continue to bring in more people like Nico. So, but please share this, because this talk has been so powerful. You know, I always like to close with a story. So actually, this is something that I just had kind of written, and I was looking for something to close with a story, and I thought, I hope this fits. So I hope this fits here, Nico. It's called Boulders versus Pebbles. I like to hike. And actually, this isn't the story. I went out hiking this Saturday. At El Malpais National Monument, the Badlands here in New Mexico, and the lava flow is incredible. And I enjoy the mountains and the beautiful places around the country that I've been able to travel to. It's easy for me to avoid the big boulders. I can walk around them, I can see them clearly, and redirect my path so I don't have to go over them or figure out how to jump from boulder to boulder. And believe me, this weekend I would not have done that, climbing down 1,000 feet from sandstone cliffs down to the valley below. And all of us do this. What is more challenging is how we maneuver and manage to walk carefully in the pebbles, especially on a steep slope. The pebbles become slippery, and I find I have to place each step down very slowly and firmly, place each step before I move forward so I don't slip. Now, we all have boulders and pebbles in our lives. Boulders are so easy to spot, but it's the pebbles we have to be aware of and try to avoid. What are the pebbles in your life? So hopefully this story relates. For me, what are those pebbles that are leading to your addiction? Those big boulders we could see out there, but it's those pebbles probably that keep you sliding and slipping and sliding and going back. So let's find the people in our lives that care about us. There are so many. Nico is certainly one of them, and all of the staff and all the volunteers at Wings, we are too. So I thank you for joining us. If you're with us on Facebook and YouTube, this is the end of our program. If you're with us on Zoom, stay right here, because we're going to go to breakout rooms, talk about all the incredible points that Nico made, and then we'll gather back together and we'll share together again. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Hope to see you next week. Same time, same place, 6 o'clock Monday nights Mountain Time. And have a blessed week. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.